Okay. Yeah, YouTube's doing something different tonight. Interesting. All right. Hey, there I am. And let's see. Let me. Looks like I am getting really blurry tonight. Ah, there's the reason. That should fix it. Hopefully. All right, guys. The stream tonight is the Great Bassoon Project. I have been in talks with my guitar friend. We will be doing a guitar stream at some point in the future. He had a recording session today he was a part of. He was doing that today. So maybe next week, we'll see. But anyway, yeah. I had thought about, and I actually recorded a video all about the Great Bassoon Project, and I just didn't like the quality of it, and I'm going to redo it at some point. Yeah. So tonight we'll be talking a lot about what I've been working on the past week or so in developing the Great Bassoon Project. And I have been working on this with Jared De Leon, who's been helping me out with a lot of the math, with Richard Bobo, and getting some consulting feedback from Steve Fox. And if you don't know Steve Fox, he is one of the preeminent clarinet makers in the world and a phenomenal acoustician. So I message him back and forth and get some input there. There's a lot of math involved in this. I will say right off the bat, you need a minimum of a good fundamental understanding of algebra and trigonometry. There is a design aspect that Richard suggested that is going to require calculus. So this is not basic level math. This is upper level math, and it is not easy to do. So, first off, a couple things real quick. I want everybody to go look down in the description of the video down below. I have something new that I just launched yesterday. I have merch. Just in time for Christmas. I have 3 designs that I have, and you can get those on t-shirts, mugs, or stickers. One is Save the Alto Clarinet. So you can get a shirt with Save the Alto Clarinet on it. And then there's Bring Back the Bass, talking about bass saxophone. And then there is a play on the famous Renee. I'll get that in a minute. That's actually important for tonight. The Rene Magritte Treachery of Images that says, I am not a pipe. And instead of that, I said, I am not a trumpet, with an image of a cornet. So yeah, those are fun. Those are some of the most band nerdy t-shirts you can find out there, and they're on my new Teespring store. So the link is in the description down below. And if you want some band nerdy stuff for Christmas, I got you covered. I will be doing more designs in the near future. I know that I've had people say they want this instrument or that instrument, and I will be taking into consideration if you want a particular instrument, let me know, and I will start working on designs for that. But anyway, that's decent coffee. This is the Komodo Dragon blend from Starbucks. Espresso. I'm particularly happy with. Actually, I really like the cornet one. That one I thought was quite inspired to use the Magritte. And I may be doing some others like that, like a euphonium one that says, I am not a baritone. But anyway, so the Great Bassoon. First off, let's talk about the name of the instrument. So, as you probably know, one of my most popular videos on my channel is about this instrument. It's the video entitled "The Missing Bassoon," And I talk a little bit about the history of it, and I never fully commit to a name for it. It's been called semi-contra bassoon before, and you'll see that in some texts. But there's not a great a name for it. Vidor calls it a bassoon quint. That's the French. But the term great bass is, most of you on my channel will know, means an instrument between bass and contrabass. That's simple enough. That's why I call the Contra alto clarinet a great bass clarinet, because it's such a much better name than Contra alto. Great bass. I mean, it's so much cooler, right? So, properly, I guess the instrument we would call a great bass bassoon, but this is one of those things that, and Richard Bobo is the originator of the name Great Bassoon. I have to give him full credit for that, because I would have called it Great Bass Bassoon. But humans like shortening things as much as possible, so it gets to Great Bassoon. Contra bassoon, Great Bassoon, bassoon. So, we'll talk a little bit about the design aspect of it. So, initially, there were two ideas. One is I could make an instrument in F, pitched a fifth below the bassoon, or I could make an instrument in G, a fourth below the bassoon. Each one has its advantages. So the instrument in F, if we think of the bassoon, and I've got my bassoon here tonight, and I'll probably play a little bit at some point. If we think of this as an instrument in C, then logically it would make sense that the next instrument is in F. Kind of like oboe, English horn. Oboe in C, English horn in F. Great. Here's the thing. The bassoon's not in F. In C. The bassoon is in F. For whatever reason, our home scale is the F major scale. Let's get out a reed here. So on all woodwind instruments except the bassoon, we name its pitch by what the 7-finger note is. The 7-finger note on the bassoon is F. And right off the bat, one, if you hear me play any other instrument, you know that automatically sounds a lot better. So this instrument is in F. If I make an instrument a fifth lower, the F great bassoon, it's in B flat. Okay, B flat's fine. Lots of instruments are in B flat, but what if I make it in G? Well, that means that scale is now a C scale. And that's the home scale of the G. You know what? C is a pretty darn easy scale to work with. I like C. And it means that I could take flute fingerings or saxophone fingerings or oboe fingerings, and I can read off of a non-transposed part with the G instrument, and lo and behold, I don't need a specially written part. And there is the winner of why I decided to pick an instrument in G over an instrument in F. Simply to make it easier on the players. And for this reason, I think I'm actually going to start advocating the smaller G tenor bassoon, G tenorune. So if I ever do get another tenorune, it will be an instrument in G, not the instrument in F. And I may go back and actually revise all of my parts to be G parts. But we'll see on that. So, first off, there are some design elements that you have to understand. And I think, so this is going to get a lot of math involved. So I'm reading all your comments, guys. If you do have any specific questions, please ask them. Mostly it's just comments, but if you've got any questions, go ahead and ask. I'll answer to the best of my ability. Serge, are you looking for just general composition advice or composition advice about the Great Bassoon? If you're just looking for regular composition advice, message me directly. And I do offer hourly lessons. But anyway, so the first thing that I had to do is figure out the cone of the instrument. So if you don't know, bassoons are conical. This is the small end, this is the big end. Okay, so the bassoon has a cone, a conical rate of expansion. The angle of it is 0.8 degrees. So I have a triangle here of 0.8 is the small angle here, and then the two angles out here, 89.6, it's 89 point something over here on the big end. So it's very okay. So how do I plan to build the keywork? I'm not fully sure yet, Jared. The one thing I do know on it is there's only going to be one open tone hole, and that's the tone hole for the first finger of the left hand. That will be open just for purposes of half-holing. How big will it end up being? I will show you in a minute because I have the thing that fell down earlier is a life-sized mock-up. Will it be range similar to the E-flat great bass clarinet? Essentially, yes. And we'll get to that. You play piano, not bassoon. Yeah, if you want composition advice, just message me directly. There's lots of links down below in the description that ways of getting a hold of me. But anyway, so the first thing I had to do is this has a conical rate of 0.8. Well, in talking with Richard, he informed me that the contrabassoon has a conical rate of 0.64. So as instruments get bigger, the rate of conical expansion decreases. So it gets smaller and smaller. So Richard had already calculated what the angle needed to be. So I took his calculations. The calculations for that is 0.73. So I have to base every calculation I do on a cone of 0.73. And I actually did an initial design with using the conical rate of 0.8. And when I did that, I had to, every measurement had to get redone. And so that changes things. Okay, what size reed will the Great Bassoon use? That is a very good question, and it is related to this rate of conical expansion. So, that's why I have to start here, because I have to, the reed is all important in this case. So, the tip opening here on the vocal of the bassoon is 4 millimeters. A contrabassoon's vocal opening is 6 millimeters. So I split the difference and said I want a tip opening of 5 millimeters. Great. So here is how you figure this out, how big the reed needs to be. You take that 0.73 cone and then you get the tangent of that at 5 degrees to figure out how long the cutoff is. So the cone has to get cut off. Yes, Ratchet, you're here. Hi. Ratchet been chatting on the Discord server all day. If you don't know, yes, we have a Discord server. It's only available to Patreon supporters. All right, so with a cutoff of 5 millimeters, I have to cut off the bore, and I think it's, I'll have to go back and look at my calculations. There is 398 millimeters that gets cut off. The exact number is written down over there. So what I've got here is a bassoon reed and a contrabassoon reed, and you can see the difference. But what I also have is an in-between reed that is essentially what the great bassoon reed would look like. Now, this particular reed that I have is a Baroque bassoon reed. So, if we look here, the Baroque bassoon reed is substantially bigger than the regular bassoon reed. This is the reed that was used in the Baroque era, or reeds like this. This particular one was designed to play on a Baroque bassoon that played at A440. And this is a modern A440 bassoon. So with the decrease in size of the reed, we can see that the bassoon has focused on from being a bass instrument to being a tenor instrument. You should make an adapter so you could also use a bassoon reed like the Contra Forte. I don't think you need to, because you can actually get shapers for Baroque bassoon, and that's what it's going to be designed to do, is to use a Baroque bassoon size reed that you just scrape like a bassoon reed. By the way, Baroque bassoon reed, let's see if this still buzzes. I haven't played on this reed in like 10 years. That's what it crows at. And that's what a regular. So actually, let me put the Baroque bassoon reed on the bassoon, and you can hear how much lower it is. And it's not in tune. It's like it's like playing an A415. That may even be closer to A392. Okay. From a composing standpoint, is a bassoon, if the bassoon is a tenor instrument, will the great bass ideally be a true bass, so the bassoon will have a consort of tenor bass, contrabass? Essentially, yes. That's kind of the goal. So a bassoon functions very much as a tenor, and the great bass will function more as a bass. Are you anticipating the octave key system to be more complex than the bassoon since it's a bigger instrument, or are you not fussed about having keys for that range like high D? The octave system is going to be completely different, and I will get to the octave system here in a little bit, because I know how it's going to work. I don't know exactly the details on it, though. Is there enough difference, though, if a Baroque reed only really plays like a semitone lower? I'm sure it's close enough, though. Joe, it's about the reed volume itself, and that gets back to that math equation. So the reed has to have a certain internal volume, and that internal volume makes up for the amount of cone that you cut off. So you measure the volume of the cone that gets cut off, and this would be up to 5 millimeters for the opening of the vocal. That has to match the internal volume of the reed. Now, with reed design, there's a lot of flexibility in that, but roughly it's going to be about the same size as a Baroque bassoon reed. Cheap low A extension. I've got a cheap low A extension in the other room. That's not, I mean, the cheap low A extension was $7. Baroque reed, yeah. Yeah, so, okay. So I've talked about the cone. And the cone is important to understand. The next thing you have to understand is the math, and it involving tone hole placement and what the lowest note is going to be. And that's going to determine the overall size of the instrument. And so there are a couple options that I can choose for the lowest note. One, I could go down to low C. Now, low C would be perfectly fine. It would be a nice G natural G1. That's the G below the bass clef. It'd be a great note. Yeah, but you know what? Bassoons all go down to B flat. So let's go ahead and go down to B flat. So that would be F1, a step lower. Well, you know what? If we're going to go there and we're going to make this a bass instrument, why not have an A? So I have designed this thing with a low A bell. Yep, and so it is going to go down to E1. The E, low open E string of the double bass, which would be a perfect note for this instrument. So, if you've got a double bass part and you need to cover it, and it goes down to E, boom, great bassoon. It will do it perfectly. No need for the big Contra bassoon. Of course, you're wondering, how big is it? It's bigger than I thought it was going to be. So, if you saw this fall down earlier, this is the 1-for-1, exactly, same as the 3-valve, lowest 3-valve of a tuba mower. Okay, so what I have here is the 1-for-1 mock-up of the Greatbassoon. This is pencil drawn, so you're not going to be able to see it too well on here. But what I have is where the boot joint would be is resting on the ground. You can't see that at all. Let's back it up. So, yeah, it's not going to fit in the camera too well. But the overall height is 6'8". So I'm looking at the time lag on here. Yeah. So the overall height is 6'8". So I'll bring it down a little bit. This is the low A. This is low B. The low B flat tone hole, where the low A key would be. The low B flat key is here for the low B tone hole. So we'll go back up. This point right here is the top of the wing joint. And that is roughly about the same height on the bassoon as the B flat key right at the logo. That's the top of the wing joint. But what I've had to do is the wing joint has a fold in it. So it goes up here and then it curves back down. So this is actually the end, the top of the wing joint down here. Even so it goes, so the tube goes from here, up, then down, all the way to the floor, and then back up here at 6'8". And what the vocal is going to do, I'm going to go ahead and take the vocal off of my bassoon, and I can kind of show you how this is going to work. The vocal will insert here essentially what we would think of as upside down. And it will be a straight vocal with no S bend in it. It'll just come out at an L. And there will probably be a spit valve on it. And I think an Amato water key will probably be the best. But that gives you an overall size. Now, there is a potential that I could take the bell and curve it back down. And in that case, it would only then be this tall. And that's as tall as a regular Contra bassoon. However, I really like having the impressive nature of the 6'8" tall beast. But I will probably design both a tall bell and a curved bell. All right, lots of questions here. Okay. I've always wa- All right, so it was always my understanding that instruments are in B flat that are in B flat because they play the B flat overtone. Okay, B flat. Okay, that it. So yeah, B flat overtone is the open bugle for a brass instrument. Woodwind instruments don't work that way. Woodwind instruments are totally different. Yeah, as mine says, it's the seven finger note. Yeah, it's not bad compared to a Baroque contrabassoon. It's about the same height as a classical contrabassoon that goes to low C. B flat clarinet is when seven fingers are down. B flat clarinet right here. Seven fingers down. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven in the upper register only. And that is a B flat, but written C. If this ever takes off, I imagine people could add extra fold for the lowest notes. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's always possible. Um, yeah, like. Oh, with the vocal going in upside down about it falling out, the cork on it is so tight. I mean, I could almost pick up my bassoon from my bogle. I'm not going to, um, but it is a tight enough fit in here that it's not a big issue. The question is how heavy. That's a good question. Um, it will be 3D printed, and for instance, I've got a 3D printed joint over here. Let me grab it real quick. All right, one of the advantages of 3D printing is that it is not a complete fill. This is the Newton joint from Richard Bobo's contrabassoon, and um, it is extremely light because this is only a 30% fill, and that's about all you need to do with 3D printing. So 30% fill means the tubing is actually hollow to 30% of it's filled in. Significantly reduces the weight. And this is in PLA plastic. And Richard has informed me that ABS plastic is half again as light. Would the Great Bassoon use a seat trap or a peg? I'm intending to do a peg on it. Would standing up playing be possible? Sure, I think it absolutely would be possible. I will. There will be a neck strap ring on it, so you wouldn't stand up in a very tall room, of course. Um, yeah, no, we're not going to do a helix. Richard has already made one complicated suggestion, and I'll talk about that in a bit. This might be a little bit of a loaded question, but do you think the Great Bassoon has a chance of establishing itself in orchestras and wind ensembles, or is it too early or too hard of a question to say? It's too early to say. I think the first place it will get used is in bassoon ensembles. And I think bassoonists will want to use it first. Then wind ensembles. Um, Orchestras don't like adding things like that. I could potentially see it being added in an orchestra before saxophones, though, because you wouldn't have to hire a new player. Would it sit between your legs? This is a good question, and honestly, I can't answer it. Without actually physically holding the instrument, I couldn't tell you. Um, my plan is the traditional bassoon way, but it may be easier to hold it in the contrabassoon way. That is something that will need to be addressed, and um, that will determine the shape of the vocal. honestly, and that will be an interesting thing. And the vocal will have to be made of metal. I'm not going to 3D print a vocal. That's not in the cards. I may talk to a vocal maker. I'd love it to have a place as a bassoonist. I always feel winds are overly top heavy. Yeah, absolutely right. The wind section in a wind band is so skewed to the upper end. The woodwind section in a band is an upside down pyramid. And band directors always want this balanced pyramid, but your woodwinds are this. So, I mean, give them more low. After this, will you design a true bass oboe an octave below the English horn? I don't know. I would like to. There's a lot of ifs there. The reason I think I can do this is because bassoon key work is simple. Bassoons have the simplest key work of any of the woodwinds by a long shot. Oboes have some of the most complex, and I don't know if I want to get into that yet. We'll do the great bassoon first. Now, remember, this is probably going to take 2 years to do. I mean, one of the next steps is going to be starting to 3D model it, and I'm going to need to talk to people who can actually do 3D modeling, because I am not good at it, but I can give the measurements. I joined my first wind band this term. It becomes obvious why bassoons are always placed with the trombones and tubas. There isn't enough bass to justify a truly independent part most of the time. Bullshit. It's just bad scoring. Oh, and that's my YouTube thing saying this is not a channel made for children. Okay? Just in case, any of that YouTube stuff. Bassoon... There isn't enough bass part to justify a truly independent part. It means you're playing bad music. It means you're playing music that is not well written, not well orchestrated. It's simple as that. Sweet, Jared. I'll talk to you offline about that. Another weird question. Are you intending to design the great bassoon with a traditional bassoon timbre and acoustics, or go the Contra Forte route and optimize the tone holes and the like? Good question. Okay. So, on that regard, that goes back to the cone. So the cone has to do a lot with the Contra Forte's tone. So I said that the cone of the bassoon is 0.8. The cone of the Contra bassoon is 0.64. I'm optimizing this at 0.73 in between the two. The Contra Forte is probably closer to the bassoon's cone at 0.8. It's an oversized cone. And so that is one of the reasons it has a much broader sound. It's like the heckelphone. The heckelphone is a great example. So the bass oboe has a cone that is proportional to where it needs to be. The heckelphone has basically the same cone as the oboe. In fact, Richard was telling me a while back that he got to play a heckelphone, and the actual diameter of the reed is bigger than a bassoon. So that tells you a lot about how big the cone is. The Contra Forte is like the heckelphone in that regard. But by and large, it's going to be along the lines of the bassoon. As for tone hole placement, I am actually going to try and put them in the acoustically correct position. So let me get the model back. Because in doing this, I realized that there is one particular tone hole that has to get moved substantially. And that is the tone hole for thumb C sharp. Now, on the bassoon, The C sharp key is operated here in the left thumb, and the tone hole is right here. However, this is not a acoustically correct position. In fact, if you look at the bassoon closely, there's a hump here in the wood, and the tone hole is angled. It's angled down as far as it can go. And there is a mathematical formula that you have to use to calculate that. It's an undersized tone hole and with a long angle going through a lot of tube, and that gives you the C sharp, but it's not acoustically correct. So what I've done here is, this is the boot joint. This is the top of the boot joint here, going down to the U bend. And so if this is the top of the boot, the C sharp key is right here. It is a good 4 inches down onto the boot. And this is the biggest acoustical change that I've had to make. I've also included a tone hole here for the E flat in the staff. I will be using Contra bassoon fingerings for that instead of bassoon to not have to deal with the Forte 1 and 3. So I can show you actually on my bassoon, because my bassoon does have that key. A forked fingering is basically if you 1 and 3. And actually it's 1, 3, 5, and then some extra keys. But the correct one acoustically is. So I've got an extra key on my bassoon just to play that E flat. I have not done any really clear pictures of it yet. Because it's all in pencil, it does not photograph well. There will be pictures at some point. So trust me on that. But yeah. So that's some of the big acoustical differences between the bassoon and the great bassoon is I'm going to actually have the key work in the logical place. Oh, thank you, Griffin. I'm sure there are lots of other channels out there. It could have been sharp. I don't know. I mean, this bassoon has a really good E. The second one is called the E flat trill, and most bassoons don't have that key, but this one has it, and it should be perfectly in tune. I don't think there's much to learn from earlier bassoons that are more optimized in a way for lower notes, since this is a lower bassoon. I don't see much point in a stratospheric high register, since that's what bassoon is for. Okay, so this gets into a purpose. So what is the purpose of the bassoon? Well, the purpose has changed over the years. So originally it was a bass instrument. It was optimized for playing the bass notes. It couldn't play, the Baroque bassoon did not play much above high G. And that would sound really, really strained on a Baroque bassoon. There's like 1 or 2 high A's in Baroque music. That would be really, really high on the Baroque bassoon. But by the time we get to the classical era, and really even into the early Romantic era, the bassoon's range goes up a lot. Weber's concerto. That's in the first movement of the Weber concerto. That's a high D. And that's 1812. I think it's 1812, 1815, somewhere around there. And that's the same high note as the Rite of Spring. That's high F. That's A flat. And The A flat was in use as early as the 1830s with Carl Almenrader. That C sharp key was designed as a vent for high A and A sharp, not for C sharp proper. It just so happens that adding the low D. Other way around. No, the C sharp key was always added there to play C sharp. It happens that it was able to be used for A and A sharp. What's my A flat? The high A flat fingering, it's 1. It's high C, high A, and C sharp trill key, B flat key. Yeah. Would a curved bell on a metal saxophone flare be an option? No. There is a bell option. So the bell option that I am going to be doing, there is a Baroque contrabassoon in a museum. It's an Italian-made instrument, and I believe it's in a museum in Salzburg. And it has a dragon's head. And if you play the lowest note on it, which people say is B flat, but I think it's really probably a C. The tongue rattles. I'm not going to do the tongue rattling, but I am going to do a dragon's head bell. So not only 6'8", but a dragon's head sticking above it. And actually not a dragon. I want to do a dinosaur head. In particular, the design I want is a Giraffe Titan, which everybody knows is Brachiosaurus. You saw Jurassic Park; it's the giant dinosaur they see, first dinosaur Dr. Grant ever sees, and I want that head up there because it's going to be such a tall instrument towering over. Why not have a dinosaur head on it? Because badass. And I want it to be a statement, and I'll paint it and have it all with colors on it and have it be kind of cool. And stuff like that is something 3D printing can do. And maybe I will make it so the head can come off and you can change it. So, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I have a sketch of it. In fact, in my Instagram link down below, there is a rough pencil drawing of it. I could do the tongue. It would be a separate piece. But actually what's going to happen when I do it is the sound's not actually going to come out through the head. There's going to be 2 holes on either side of it to properly vent the low A, and the head will just be decoration. So no sound will actually go through the lowest note, the top of the head. But yeah, that's the plan there. I think that will be quite fun. But there is a lot of study. I was thinking of it like a Christmas ornament on a tree. Yeah, essentially, yeah. Well, not the Christmas ornament, but the topper. Well, I suppose bassoon and Contra use different bells, so you might as well be creative. Yeah, I mean, reminds me of a little Mongolian horse head figures. Yeah, exactly. Go look at double basses, man. If you look at the top scroll on a double bass, I played in an orchestra once where it was a person's head was the scroll up there. There used to be this fine artisanal craftsmanship in just creating these over-the-top things. To have a formal bell, wouldn't want to make a dinosaur spitting at the audience or for a funeral or yeah, somber put. Is there a video of that Baroque contrabassoon playing? Not that I am aware of, no. And I'm not even sure if that particular instrument is in playing condition. Only one actual Baroque contrabassoon is still in use, and from the Baroque period. That's the Stainsby, that was used for Handel's music for the Royal Fireworks, and the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment uses that. The sculptural thing is absolutely neat. Yeah, it's like there's a return to horn players painting the inside of their bells. Um, just these beautiful designs. This isn't 100% related to video, but how come the bassoon and contrabassoon have different fingerings? Couldn't they make a design where the contrabassoon has the same fingerings as the bassoon? The answer is no. It would actually be the other way around. It would be easier to make a bassoon that has contrabassoon-like fingerings. In essence, the contrabassoon's fingerings are more logical. They are easier to follow. Bassoon has terrible fingerings. And I've used this word a lot of times to describe the bassoon's fingering system. It is a kludge. And it's a great word. I love it. I taught my dad that word this week. Essentially, it works because it works. And we're not going to go into the details of why the bassoon works. How the contrabassoon was designed to be much more acoustically correct. So the bassoon does not do harmonics like other instruments. So that's actually pretty good. The harmonics in the bassoon don't function great. So the contrabassoon's harmonics work a lot better because they can go octave and then the fifth. Building off Larry's comment, how different would great bassoon fingerings be from each? So okay, so as long as there were room for a Santa hat on top. Oh yeah, Santa hat. Have you seen the engraving that Monet does? Yeah. So bassoon and contrabassoon fingerings are of all the auxiliary instruments, contrabassoon has the most different fingerings from its primary. And part of that has to do with the overblowing system of the contrabassoon and the fact that the contrabassoon does not have forked fingerings. So again, back to forked fingering. So E flat is the primary culprit. This is the E flat on bassoon. That fingering does not work on contrabassoon because the tone holes are so big that if I do that same fingering on a contrabassoon, I'm going to get an E natural. And so contrabassoon has the E flat key. The great bassoon will have the E flat key. Whether the great bassoon has two E flat keys, it probably will. Just because that it tends to work better with two. So that's one of the big things. The other thing is the octave venting mechanism. Now, let me talk about what I'm going to be doing with the octave venting mechanism on the great bassoon. If you don't know, the bassoon's octave venting mechanism sucks. I mean, it is just stupidly designed. And this is the kludgiest thing on the bassoon. So we've got the whisper key. There's this thumb operated key. It opens a little tiny pinhole in the vocal here. Some contrabassoon fingerings are quite hard, though. Moving your finger to play E flat is pretty hard to get used to compared to fork. That's why when I played contrabassoon, I had a thumb E flat key. So the thumb E flat key was right here above the B flat. And that is a great key to have. This is, Richard likes having this key here. It also means that he uses front B flat too. So front B flat, E flat. Super simple there. But anyway, so the whisper key works kind of. It's supposed to be an inverted octave key. I know a person who has their crook key inverted, so it makes it more sense. And also, someone with their low E flat inverted. My low E flat is inverted. Yes. Yeah. So my low E flat and my low D flat are inverted. No, I am not going to have more thumb keys on the great bassoon. I'm going to have fewer. Here's what's going to happen. The whisper key on the great bassoon is gone. Goodbye. The vent keys are gone. I have it designed for a single, fully automatic octave key. And I have figured out how to do it. It is going to take some ingenuity, and particularly because I have to bend over the top of the wing joint. But what will happen? You press down the single octave key, and it opens up the vent for high E, F, and E flat, way at the top of the instrument. Then I put down the first key, it's still down. I put down the second finger, and it switches over to another vent. Third finger down. Fourth finger down, it switches over to another vent. So 3 vents. One that's operated by the first finger of the right hand, one that's operated by the second finger of the left hand, and one that's operated by the first finger of the left hand. And in doing that, I've got a triple automatic octave system that will work. Nope. No goofy cables. Unless I do a flageolet key. And that is something that is potentially possible, to do a flageolet key. Those bike cables are actually a lifesaver when it comes to key work. Particularly like on the Contra Forte. It's the only way you could really get to those vents on the vocal. It's a genius solution. No, it's going to be inspired by the Weisberg, but the Weisberg to me is putting a band-aid on the underlying issue that the whisper key just needs to go away and just put an actual functioning octave system on the instrument. And if you do that, you don't have to link it to all these other keys. The Weisberg system is overly engineered. This will actually be simpler. No whisper key. In fact, one of the reasons that I had to bend over the top of the wing joint is because with the bassoon here, the highest vent here is for D. Well, I'm going to have a vent up here for F, which means that I'm going to have to extend the wing joint even further up. And in doing that, it gets longer. And this hole here goes away. And it becomes a true actual vent. And so it will function much better. In theory, I can't say in practice what it'll do because I don't have it yet. The octave system will be the last thing designed. It will be the most complicated system on it, but it will not be as complicated as the Weisberg system. Because it does not have to connect to the whisper key. It does not have to connect to the E flat key. It does not, well, no, it will need a connection to the boot joint, but only one. Now, what I will try and preserve is, so I've got the automatic key. Then next to it, I'm going to have keys that will be able to select for vents if you want to choose a different vent. So what I'm thinking is one key here and then 1, 2, 3 keys off to the side. Well, I suppose the crook key wasn't really added to be an octave key at all. The hole was there. much longer than the key, and no one ever changed it successfully. Right. And the original whisper keys were just to close that little vent that had always been in the vocal. Even back to the Baroque era, there was a tiny pinhole in the vocal. These changes sound like it will be quite different key work. How easily will bassoonists adapt to the fingerings? Contrabassunists should be able to adapt to it perfectly. It will be essentially contrabassoon fingerings. No biggie. Bassoon players, they can pick it up in a week, maybe less. Particularly if the bassoon player is adept at contrabassoon. The biggest difference will be it will require actually less technique. There will be no flicking involved. There will be no... The thumb only has to, in the upper register, only will have to hit two keys. The octave key and the C-sharp key. Simple. If you want to go up higher, you can go up higher. But that's not the function of the instrument. The function of the instrument will be to stay down lower. So there's shouldn't be a lot of new technique to learn. And the technique that you learn will be simple. It won't be overly complex like the flicking system that we bassoonists already use. For non-bassoonists in the room, let me demonstrate the octave system on the bassoon. So I'm going to see if I can get to where... So this is A. And I want you to watch my left thumb. So in order to go up the octave, I've got the thumb key here on the whisper key. Then I take it off the whisper key. Then I lightly touch the A key here. The problem is that there is that moment that the whisper key is open on the low note, meaning there is a leak built into the instrument. So the bassoon inherently has a leak built into it. But without thumb keys, how do we show off to other wind players? Oh, you're still going to have thumb keys because you're going to have the low notes here. You're going to have the low notes here. You're just going to have one or two fewer high note keys. It's as simple as that. So, this bassoon has 11 thumb keys for the left thumb. The great bassoon will have 2, maybe 3 fewer. So 8 keys for the left thumb. I mean, that's simple compared to, 1. So what happens if I don't tap that A key? Nothing. I stay in the octave. That is, the A key is the octave vent. It opens up the harmonic hole here that allows it to go up the octave. Now I could hit the C key or the D key and it'll do the same. But without that, I can't go up the octave. I can force it with the tongue. But it's not as clean. That actually comes out well. The B-flat may not. There's a little bit of a crack in that sound. But if I vent it, it's perfect. I like the system on my tenor. It has 2 keys that function as octave keys. Yeah, and I don't think the second key actually functions very well on your tenorune, Jared. I've played that model before, and sometimes you get a lucky read that means you can be super lazy with the octave keys without any cracking, but I try not to get into any more bad habits. No, yeah. There used to be when bassoonists were trying out for orchestras, they would ask the auditioners to play the first 2 notes of the Mozart Bassoon Concerto. And the first 2 notes of the Mozart Bassoon Concerto are this. And if they could play those 2 notes, they could move on to the next round. it was a test to see if they would crack them or not. So I'm going to play it now without them. I cracked the first note. Is the F scale the most simple scale in the bassoon and contra? Essentially, yes. I mean, F scale is... It's just... bassoon is weird. Bassoon has what we call a soft scale. A soft scale in the Renaissance era meant the... I'm sorry, the bassoon has a hard scale. Excuse me. So a soft scale is a major scale. A hard scale is a raised fourth scale degree. That's the bassoon's actual fundamental scale, is an F mixolydian scale. Or, F Lydian, not mixolydian, F Lydian. And that's what was called a hard scale in the Baroque era. Some early Dulcians would have just been a simple F scale, and then they played the F sharp with the second finger instead of the first. Dulcians were actually easier in that regard. So who will play the great bass bassoon? The third bassoonist, if the second bassoonist, or will it vary scoring? So as I would see it, it would be bassoon 1, bassoon 2, great bassoon, contra bassoon. And so you'd have the four players there. And this would fill in the role of the third bassoon. And that is very in line kind of with what the role of the third bassoon does anyway. The third bassoon really pairs with contra bassoon, leaving 1 and 2 as the tenor roles. And it works pretty well that way. I skipped over helicopter. I've recently modeled a semi-contra bassoon like a mixture of an oversized bassoon and an undersized contra bassoon. It came out to be only 4 feet tall. And that's one reason So at 4 feet tall, it actually starts to get into that realm. It will feel too small and it will feel unbalanced in a lot of regards. So that'd be only, shorter than the bassoon. And while it may be more compact, I don't think necessarily it will feel better to the player. I think the player is actually going to want a little bit larger instrument, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to keep it much more bassoon-like shape. I like that a lot more than doubling. Hopefully, composers will do that and expand the low woodwinds. I've only been playing bassoon for about 2 years, and the amount of additional key work and all the upper notes I can't play kind of blows my mind. You just need to practice and just the scales. 2 years. I would not expect you really after 2 years to be able to play much above a high G. There's a leak somewhere. Well. So helicopter, how about 5 foot or 4'6"? Okay, so the one thing that you need to think about, I'm going to get out the drawing again. Even with the bend in the wing joint. So I'm right here. The top of the wing joint is about 4'6" off the ground. If I stopped this instrument at low B flat, it's going to be 5'6". It comes up to about here. So it's, I mean, I could take this and wrap it down. But I also like a little bit of drama. And a little bit of drama is I want the extra tall. Just, you know, have you got a bootstrap so did your jeans? No, there is a strap here, but I just hold it. I mean, I don't need a strap, and if I'm just going to play it for a few minutes. Oh man, it's been like 5 years since I last played Scheherazade. How hard would it be for someone to 3D print an entire bassoon? It'd be pretty difficult. There are some aspects that will be easier. So one of the things that Richard and I have discussed is it's that bend in the upper wing joint that's going to actually prove to be the most difficult aspect of the instrument. And I've said this before on live streams, you want as few bends in an instrument as possible. And that's why I'm not fully keen on trying to make it compact. You do want few bends. If I put more bends in it, the airflow gets redirected and the acoustics will change. So I don't want to change the acoustics much. That said, in order to be played by humans, I've got to put that bend in the wing joint. So what I originally modeled, and what's on the paper there, is a very tight U-turn. That's not what's going to actually work. It's going to have to go up, out, back in, and so it's going to need to be basically like a shepherd's crook on a cornet. Is a modern Contra bassoon too compact then? Joe said, drama is good for marketing, but players who need to get through the door will regret the decision in the future. Yeah, it's fine. It'll get through a door. Modern Contra bassoon is as compact as it needs to be. How big would a theoretical case be? Oh no. Give me a second. Oh, no. Okay, we're good. I thought I heard my camera shut off. Okay, so how big would the case be? Surprisingly, not as big as you think. So, the case would only need to be this long. So this is the maximum length of the bass joint. And that is not terribly much longer than the bassoon case. It is going to be longer by less than 6 inches. So not terribly large. You would be actually looking at something around the size of a tenor saxophone case, maybe a bass clarinet case, and that's it. I'm sure Contra bassoons carrying their instruments would say no. Make double bass gig bags. This is up the market. Self-travel great bassoon. Well, no, you don't want to. You're not going to design multiple great bassoons. I mean, I could design multiple bells for it, yes. And I could also design it where, some of the early Heckel contrabassoons came with multiple bells. So you could have a low C bell, and the low C bell was the original design, and the low C bell stood straight up. And that was the original design of the Heckel contrabassoon, was with a C bell that went right up into the air. And then you would get what's called the symphony model. And the symphony model contrabassoon took that C belly, just kept going up, and then looped back down. And so the symphony model contrabassoon was well over 6 feet tall. And that didn't prove very practical when they needed to take contrabassoons into the orchestra pit. And so they lowered it. And the modern contrabassoon is what's called the opera model. So the symphony model was a very, very tall bell. The opera model is the instrument that we see now. And they are the de facto contrabassoon. Though you will see, if you see a low A contrabassoon, they will have that taller bell. Amati Rodenwald has the symphony models available again. Are you saying that a great bassoon should be taller than both a bassoon and a contrabassoon? Well, I'm saying it will be if you'd have the bell pointing up. One thing I don't like about the contrabassoon design is that the bell points down. With the bell pointing down, your sound's going into the floor. This is an actual problem with contrabassoon, and why I think the Contra Forte does improve on the design some, in that the bell points up. Contrabassoon is notoriously the most difficult woodwind to record in microphone because the sound just comes out all over the place. And it goes into the ground, and one of the reasons you can't hear the contrabassoon out in the audience. With the bell pointing up, the sound's going up and out, and that's so much better for the audience. Quite frankly, bassoon cases are pretty tiny, so it won't be a problem. Yeah, bassoon cases are nothing. My high school once had a bass clarinet double on contra clarinet, and after seeing that case, nothing will surprise me again. Oh yeah, and remember, contrabassoons don't come apart; they are one piece. I played one of those low C contrabassoons recently. It was in awful condition. The case was full of green mold. It was quite sad and really gross. Yeah, well, my guess is that it is possible that that low C contrabassoon at one time had a low A bell. The contrabassoon bell points down, but it isn't bass scientifically omnidirectional. Yes, but air isn't. So that's one of those things. The contrabassoon sound will go into the floor because that's just the direction that the sound is going. It'll bounce off some, but depending on the flooring, it could very easily get absorbed. That's you look at your tuba, the bell points up. You want the sound going up and out. If it's going down, it's going to get lost not only in the floor, but in the player's legs, and it's going to have a much harder time getting out to the audience just because there's so much distraction and interference in the way. It was only keyed down to C. Possible. They're out there. You don't see them much anymore. I had a Vito contrabass clarinet with a 6'4" case. Never again. Yeah. I do not understand why Vito contra clarinets do not come apart. It's baffling. We have a low C contrabass in our apartment. Very leaky, unfortunately pretty old. Pre-World War I. Circa 1910. Yeah, that sounds about right. When I was at TCU, the top bassoon there was a early 5000 series Heckel that was from 1912. So TCU's top instrument is, 107 years old. And it played pretty well. I mean, it had been completely overhauled and revamped. And, but yeah. Then you've got the French horns, whose bell points backwards. They make it work, though. Fits with the kind of muffled timbre. Yeah, and, I mean, that works because of the tessitura they play in and the volume that they can play at. We're talking about a woodwind instrument that's not going to have a great volume to it. It may have a larger volume than the regular bassoon, and with the fact that it's going to be down in a low register, it's going to need all the projection it can get. Also a dinosaur head. My school district is lucky enough to own one of the mega expensive LeBlanc Contra clarinets that was heavenly. I hope to one day be rich enough to own one myself. Well, I mean, you mean like a LeBlanc paperclip? Those aren't that expensive. I mean, they haven't been made in 10 years, though, is the problem. LeBlanc's out of business. Lots of horns use reflectors. Yeah, and so with horn reflectors, part of that is to reflect the horn sound back out, but a lot of it is also to protect the percussion sound coming into the horns. So particularly, you never want to put your horns in front of your timpani because the timpani vibrations will actually start shaking the horn and they'll start missing notes. I showed a former contrabassoonist an image of a semi-contrabassoon model, like a smaller contrabassoon. He said he would play one if he could. Yeah. Does your bassoon play better than most heckles you've tried? I haven't tried that many heckles. Heckles are... people don't allow you to play their heckles very often. I have played a handful. When I was trying out bassoons, this played as well as the heckles that I was able to try. And considering that I paid a little less than $7,000 for this, and the heckles at that time were around $30, I went with this. Selmer. Yeah, Selmer is very... Yeah, that's an expensive horn. $34,000 is the suggested retail price. They really go around 20 to 22, maybe 25. In both the concert bands I'm in, they use reflectors for the horns. Yeah, and that's going to be pretty typical. And again, most of that is actually to block out the percussionists. I wish I could afford a paper clip. I've never seen a low C1 sell for under $4,000. Yeah, that's about right. You might find one less than that, but timpani is on the opposite side for one, and the other percussion is in front of the brass, sadly. So yeah, you only have to worry about the percussion with the horns. The paperclip model is the Blanc Model 340. It's or is it 350? I can't remember. It's one of them. But it's just the metal contrabass clarinet that goes to low C. 5 or 7 years ago, they sold for a lot less. Took advantage of that back then. I've forgotten, and Google isn't helping for some reason. Yeah, but the LeBlanc instruments have been out of production 10, maybe more years now. LeBlanc Paris is out of business. Essentially, LeBlanc USA is out of business too. They're just a label under the Consumer. But yeah, so that's where I am standing right now on the Greatbassoon. Decided to do it in G instead of F. Would an A bassoon be a bassoon d'amore? Also, would it be pointless? Okay, bassoon d'amore, they have existed. But essentially what they were was regular bassoons that they put a bulb bell on. Theoretically, yes, you could make a bassoon d'amore in A. Richard and I have jokingly talked about doing that. He also wants to make one in D, a step above the regular bassoon, so ostensibly in the key of G. And he just wants that so he can play Marriage of Figaro Overture. Because Marriage of Figaro sucks. But theoretically, yes. But there have been bassoons d'amore. Mostly, I think they were Swiss instruments, and they actually had a bulb metal bell. By the way, if you don't know, with bassoon bells, every bassoon you'll see has this nice little flare in it. This flare is only on the outside. It's not on the inside. The bassoon's inside does not flare. This is just a straight taper through here. In fact, what you'll see is actually a double flare. So it actually constricts here, comes out here, and constricts again. But the inside is straight. The straight metal low E flats are going up. I'm waiting for the curve of this price rise to come back down. I'm wondering if it ever will. Mine, I don't think the prices are going to come down because they're out of production. No one's making them anymore, and they're still in demand. So D major is a bad key for bassoons. Not necessarily D major is a bad key for bassoons, just Marriage of Figaro sucks. No bassoon player likes playing Marriage of Figaro. I have an unhealthy obsession with the idea of a fully keyed soprano dulcian. Well, if you have it fully keyed, it's not a dulcian anymore. Basically, are you asking basically like a soprano bassoon? I mean, I don't think you're not going to get a soprano bassoon until you get first fully functioning tenor bassoons, then fully functioning alto bassoons. If the alto bassoon works, then maybe you go to the soprano, but otherwise, I don't know. If your instrument has contrabassoon-like fingerings, I would play it if I could. We'll see. What key is Marriage of Figaro? Marriage of Figaro is in D. Let me see if I can play it. Marriage of Figaro is one of those. The problem with Marriage of Figaro, and I played it a couple times, is this the fingering combination. Yeah, it's what are your opinions on a pocket trumpet with twice the tubing like the amount on a baritone? Wessex has one of those for sale. Well, not a pocket trumpet. They have a pocket euphonium that they sell, a travel euphonium. Yeah, at least the overture. What purpose would Richard's subcontrabassoon serve in a chamber setting? I mean, there's already one chamber piece written for it. Matthias Hutter has written a serenade that I believe it's 9 players, and there's a subcontrabassoon in there. So, I mean, it functions as the lowest voice of whatever ensemble it's in. That's, the point. So, music for it already exists. Convincing composers that this instrument that I'm working on will be a viable potential instrument is going to be interesting. Because it's neither bassoon nor contrabassoon. I think where it will show and shine is the flexibility it will offer in the lowest range. And the bassoon is not flexible in the bottom fifth of its range because it's all thumb extensions past there. And it would just, with the great bassoon, it just shift that down and you'd be much more flexible. Would I do another live stream with Richard and Jared in the future? Sure, yeah. I'm sure Jared's up for it. I'll have to talk to Richard. But Jared gives a thumbs up. We'll look at doing that. But yeah, that was definitely fire. And we actually, I think, kept talking for nearly another hour after we stopped. Theoretically, we would have a soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, bass, music rearranged for tenor, bass, great bass, contrabass, sub avas, subcontrebass and have just an epic low bassoon consort. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the point, is we want an epic low bassoon consort. But yeah, no, so it will definitely change um, uh, the way that composers can use the bassoons, because let's face it, bassoons have the smallest family of any of the woodwinds. I mean, two functional members, with a third kind of sitting there on the outskirts, and a fourth one that we just laugh at and go, we'll see. I mean, Ratchet, we basically have that going all the time in the Discord server already. So, but yeah. Let's see. Do we have any other questions on the Great Bassoon and where it is? I didn't go into all the really detailed math, and I don't think anybody wants to, because nobody likes sitting through math lectures. I would like more low winds in the wind choir, though. Yeah, absolutely. You need it. The woodwind section is not balanced. I mean, I think that essentially a really well balanced wind band would have a low clarinet section, two bass clarinets, a great bass clarinet, contrabass clarinet, and do the same thing with bassoons. Two bassoons, great bassoon, contrabassoon. Man, you get those 8 players together, and that is going to be a meaty low into your woodwind section. That's not counting alto clarinets and low saxophones. So, I mean, if you add a pair of alto clarinets on there and a bari and a bass sax, you've now got a 12-member section of the low woodwind section. And more high brasses. Well, you want flugelhorns there. So what exactly is the great bassoon? The great bassoon is an instrument I am working on that is going to be a bassoon pitched 1/4 lower in G. And I guess, Alexis, that you just joined us. And that's kind of what we've been talking about nearly an hour and a half now. So I'm going to back up and I will show the design of it. And let's get this out of the way. And this is what the great bassoon would be. I know you can't see the actual design, but this would be the top of the instrument up here. Could you get Richard to make a 3D model of the great bassoon? There will be 3D modeling going on. I'm sure Richard will help some. There will probably be multiple people working on that. Do I plan on making it from the vocal down or the bell up? I don't know, Jared. Honestly, the most difficult part of it to make will be the wing joint. Not including the vocal. Vocal will be the most difficult. And that will probably be something that I won't do. I might. We'll see. I've thought about how to do a vocal, but making a vocal is the most difficult aspect of making a bassoon. But it would be easier to start with the bell and come down. But yeah, 3D modeling will start at some point. I'd like to do some more modeling on paper before it goes to 3D. There are some aspects that are going to prove to be tricky, and in particular, I think the boot joint is going to be one of the most difficult to model, because of the thickness of it. Surprisingly, everything lines up pretty well on the boot joint. And the tubes are parallel. They're straight up and down. They don't intersect which is a godsend. Um, there's just a lot to do on it. We'll see. There's a lot to do on it. One of the things that is going to get tricky is those with the wall thicknesses. Every time I make the wall thicker, I have to change the position of the tone hole. And so there's an actual formula, and Jared has built a database where I can just plug in the numbers. But everything right now is modeled on a 5 millimeter thickness on the wall. But if I have to change it to a 6 millimeter thickness, the position of the tone hole changes. And when you get to the boot joint, that becomes much more difficult. So we'll see. And with positioning the keys, I have not even thought about where the actual key positions go yet. That'll be one of the next things. And I will probably start bell down. Because the bell and the bass joint do not intersect with the other joints. Will next week be about guitars with someone else in the same room, like September with Mikey? No. My friend who's going to talk with us on guitars, he is going to do it. He's up in Massachusetts, so it'll be through Skype, just like we did with Jared and Richard. How much do you charge for that database? Ask Jared. But it's just an Excel spreadsheet with formulas that have been taken from Steve Fox's website. It's essentially, there's just a big, long calculus problem in there. Maybe not calculus, just like advanced algebra 3 level stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure if the guitar one will happen next week or not. It's just going to depend on Michael's schedule. He's in a recording session today, so. But yeah, we'll see. All right, so we've been going right at an hour and a half. If I'll take a couple more questions on the Great Bassoon. Next step, I'll probably start working on keywork design. And I'll need to talk to Jared about that, about how to build and source keywork. Have you ever thought about 3D printing a regular bassoon as a way to compare acoustics and ease of building with the sub-Contra and great bass bassoons? Might be a useful reference point. One of the first things I will do is one of the things I want to do is 3D print a bell. So model and 3D print a bassoon bell. If I can get that, then I think I'll be in the. That's a good plan. Yeah, if you join the Discord, Jared will share that. So if you want to join Discord, you got to join Patreon, $1 a month, and we continue this conversation that we're having here all week long, and it's a bunch of fun in there. We share lots of stuff, but yeah, I'm really enjoying having the Discord going. But yeah, so one of the projects will be to model and 3D print a bell, and actually I'll probably even do a low A bell as well. Will you do normal videos of Great Bassoon soon? I probably will, yes. So, I did record one, but I'm going to redo it. I do not like how the one I recorded came out. So, and I've been having camera issues, so I've got my GoPro that I don't use very often. And I may try filming with that instead. We'll see. I've got that back where it's working again. But yeah. All right. So, if there are no more questions, I've been talking hour and a half. This is always fun. But that's kind of the status right now of the Great Bassoon. It is in early design phases. Um, there's a lot of stuff here, and there's going to be a lot more design. And like I said, 2 years probably minimum. It could be longer than that. Yeah, I think this instrument is what got me into your channel. Well, it is the second most viewed instrument, most viewed video on my channel. Yeah. And I'm not fully sure why it is. All right. So, anyway, I will talk to you guys next week. I'm not sure what the topic next week will be. I will try and talk with Michael about coming on for guitars. But well, we'll see. But anyway, guys, it's been fun. If you want to continue the discussion, head over to Patreon and you can join us on the Discord. Also, check the link down below with new Band Nerd merch. Lots of fun t-shirts. And I will be designing more t-shirts as we go along, too.